Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. We're going to cover everything. We're going to cut through all the propaganda, give it to you straight from left, right, and center. The opinions are what counts.
Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. We've got it all covered for you, folks, top to bottom. Let's get started with what's our current status with the Israeli-U.S. Iran war. Well, I'm going to tell you one thing. From this commentator, I fully support the president. I support the actions of the United States military. I support the actions of the Israeli military. I think Trump, Netanyahu demonstrated tremendous leadership. And it's typical, our media in this country clamoring, what was the reason for the attack? Is it worth it? Blah, 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 blah. Of course it's worth it. You had an opportunity, and obviously the news has come out that the entire Iranian leadership had gathered, and based on a call from Israeli intelligence through Netanyahu, President Trump, the assault was speeded up and the war was launched. You can call it whatever you want, but it's nothing short of a war by the Israelis and the Americans on the Iranians. So I fully support it. I know a lot of people have differing opinions, particularly some of the MAGA base, some of the followers of this show and this network. But when you look at the alternatives were worse. Now, I'm not going to get into the geopolitical strategy. A lot of people have talked about that, overthinking this thing, saying, well, we did it for the oil and China. And no, we did it based upon what President Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu, Secretary of State Marco Rubio have discussed. And based upon the success of the attacks so far, the probability of the Iranians having nuclear weapons, I think, has gone down sub 1%, maybe zero. Also, they've depleted a significant portion of their long-range missiles. Yes, they still have them. And yes, they still have drones that can be very effective. But based upon all the ships that have been sunk, the launchers that have been eliminated, the hierarchy of command that has been eliminated, the sheer number of missiles that have been used and eliminated, those stockpiles the Iranians have are dwindling. Now, the drone thing could be a separate issue. But so far, 17 ships have been sunk in the Navy. 2,000 plus targets have been hit. Each day, basically, they have free reign over the skies, the Israelis and the Americans. The number of attack missiles coming out of Iran is dwindling on a regular basis. At a certain point, probably later this week, you'll see the missile launches coming out of Iran slow down to a trickle. May take through the weekend, may take into next week. And you hear a lot of this clamoring about, well, we're going to use the Polar interceptors. Raising Cane put that one to rest earlier this morning. So you have a situation now where you have control over the skies. The leadership is decimated. The Navy is sunk. They're running out of missiles. Yes, there still could be additional missiles. They've launched at all the neighboring countries, basically using a strategy of trying to inflict economic pain on those countries to get the United States and the Israelis to stop. I've heard various comments, well, there have been certain Iranians reach out to the CIA through back channels about stopping this. I've seen zero evidence of that. What I have seen is consistency from President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu to execute the plan that they laid out. Bear in mind, we're day 4 into this thing. Day 4, day 5. Trump previously said this is going to be a 4-week operation. Having listened to Trump, I would tend to believe him. Yes, the heavy stuff could be the first week. Yeah, I get that. But there will come a certain point pretty soon where the risk of missiles coming out of Iran is greatly reduced. The drone thing, again, I can't handicap that because these drones seem to be very effective. The Ukrainians use drone technology extremely effective in their war with the Russians. And from what I've seen, once this missile supply dwindles, that the drones appear to be the highest risk, for both the Americans, the Israelis, and the neighboring countries. We've seen hotels hit. We've seen our consulates hit, our embassies hit, military bases hit. We lost 6 American service members by a missile striking a base. But having said that, the overall success is the plan laid out by Kane and Secretary of Defense Hegseth, Trump, Rubio. They seem to be executing the plan that they said they were going to do. And doesn't it make you sick when you see all these left-wing media outlets trying to nitpick every single thing that possibly could have gone wrong in this mission? There hasn't been a whole lot gone wrong. Yes, we did lose 6 service members. That's tragic. Yes, there have been deaths in Israel. Yes, there was a school hit in Iran. We still don't know the source of that. So you have what I've seen so far, basically right-wing coverage, pretty supportive for the most part. What I call centrist reporters, they're pretty much calling it the way they see it. Some to the left, some to the right, some down in the middle. And the leftist media outlets, of which a lot of it's the legacy media, you turn it on, despite all the successes, first thing you see in these reports are the problematic issues. But when you step back and look at the big picture, it's an overwhelming success that the U.S. and the Israelis are achieving. The U.S. has clearly come out and said that they're going to continue these attacks, as has the Israelis. Now, the Iranians threatened to close off the Strait of Hormuz so tankers could not get through. They temporarily did that. But if you don't have a Navy to support it, and you're running out of missiles, and the Airforce planes have generally been grounded, how are you going to do that? Trump has even offered to have the Navy escort tankers through the straits. That's important. We did that once before. Now, the question is, what comes next? That's the question everybody's asking. Is Khamenei's son going to be the next appointed leader? I wouldn't want to write an insurance policy on his life. Now, there are reports that various leaders in Iran had congregated in a building to select a new leader, and that building was hit. We don't know the extent of that probability or not, but we know the building was hit. And there are some reports circulating that his son is going to be the next leader. We will see. Now, American polling is mixed on this. A Fox poll came out and basically said it's half support, half against it. Almost every other polling number I've seen shows about 45, 46% approve, 54, 55% don't. Guess what? That almost mirrors Donald Trump's approval rating. Trump's sitting there 45, 46, in optimistic polls 47, disapproval about the opposite side 53, 54, 55. So it's almost like whatever way Trump is going, his approval goes with. The Democratic Party is overwhelmingly against this war. 70-something% of Democrats said no. Republicans generally in favor of it, north of 82, 83%. Independents, a little bit less, 45, 55. So they're a little bit underwater with the independents. But overall, I think those numbers go up as the success rate accelerates. When the missiles coming from Iran slow down materially, the U.S. and the Israelis have control over the skies of Iran right now. I heard commentary about ground forces coming in. I do not believe that's going to be the case. I think Hegseth, Trump, they've understood the lessons from the mistakes in Iraq. I do not see that happening. Now, could there be some efforts by the CIA on the ground? Sure. But I don't think we're going to see the U.S. Army on the ground or the Marines in Iran. embassies, consulates, our allies in the region, obviously attacked. What has that done? It's driven them closer to the United States. And you all have seen the flight patterns, when they show them up on the screen about where aircraft are traveling. You don't see them flying through the UAE, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Iran. That airspace is not being utilized. That will gradually work its way through where it will be. But that's going to be a slower process because the United States and the Israelis want to make sure all the missile launchers are destroyed, all the planes are destroyed, and an overwhelming majority of the missiles are destroyed. So overall, in my opinion, when you analyze the success of the military mission, and we're getting regular briefs by General Kane and by Secretary of Defense Hegseth, it seems to me from everything I'm seeing on multiple media reports that this plan is being executed almost ahead of schedule. And then you say, well, Mark, what are the end game here? I think the end game is to completely eliminate any possibility of the Iranians having nuclear weapons, eliminate their ability to launch missiles and rockets at the region or at Israel, cripple or destroy their armed forces, bring in regime change. Don't be afraid to say it. Part of the objective in this is regime change. You know it. I know it. We don't need to dance around the fact and come up with excuses for it. I believe deep in my heart the purpose of this mission was twofold. One, ensure they never get, actually three purposes. Ensure they never get a nuclear weapon, completely disable their missile and rocket launching capabilities, and regime change. And I'm not ranking those in order. You can put them in whatever order you want. But with at least Khamenei and 50 of the top Iranians eliminated, no telling how many more have been, it appears that all three objectives are in the process of being achieved. So I think that's a good thing. Is the region better off? Yes. Privately, were the Saudis encouraging the U.S. to do this? It appears so. And now with the attacks on all their neighboring countries, you're basically building up a U.S.-Israeli coalition. And it's not going to shock me at all when we come out of this where peace deals break out between the Israelis, the Saudis, and other partners within the region. And if the Iranians can get the right leader or leaders, then it could be a very good thing for the region. So that's my take on it. Very favorable so far. I expect Trump to continue. I don't expect any criticism is going to change his planning. He has demonstrated an ability in the past. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. You know damn good and well the Israelis are not going to stop. They're going to continuing their attacks. This is seventh heaven for the Israelis, to have the U.S. participating with them in eliminating the most destabilizing force in the Middle East over the past 47 years that have killed thousands of American citizens. This is, in my opinion, a just war. The objectives, whether they've been stated correctly or not, are crystal clear. And if there's ancillary benefits such as peace in the region, relationships between the Israelis, the Saudis, the Jordanians, the UAE, the Emirates, the Qataris, that's a bonus for us. Okay, we're going to take a 30-second break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about the election results. Talk about some economic news that's come out of this. Stick with Schaftlein Report. We have everything covered for you. Be back in 30.
AI is everywhere, but none of it does everything. Until now, meet Real Intelligence, RI, the one AI that does it all better. It generates cinema quality 4K videos, unreal images, and award-worthy music, all in one platform. RI even writes code and handles advanced research at your command. No more juggling multiple apps or settling for less. Your creativity deserves one powerhouse. Real intelligence, better at everything, all in one place. Try RI now for free at tryrinow.com.
And we're back. Okay, let's get right into it about the election results from last night. North Carolina, no surprise. We've got leading Democrat, leading Republican, going to tee it up in the gubernatorial race. Mike Whatley, Trump Sam-appointed former head of the RNC. Cooper for the Democrats. He's never lost an election. It's going to be a tough one. You know, don't believe anything when you say, well, this is going to be easy for the Republicans. It is not. The Democrats are currently ahead in that one, but a lot of time left. All right, let's get into the key race where there was some drama last night. In the Democratic primary, Jasmine Crockett was defeated. Yes, she was. Talarico defeated her by about 5 points, effectively for right now, ending her political career. I know everybody's going to shed a tear for that one. Not really. And on the Republican side, John Cornyn, surprising strength, not to me, but to a lot of people. They thought that Ken Paxton was going to come out ahead. It was widely viewed that neither one would get 50%. They didn't. But it came down 43-44 for Cornyn and about 40% for Paxton. They will have a runoff. I'm betting that John Cornyn wins that race. I know there's a lot of MAGA supporters that support Paxton. I do not believe that is our strongest candidate by any stretch of the imagination. And in Republican politics, I don't care what state you're in, whether it's a red or a blue, you pick the candidate that has the highest probability of winning, and I think that's John Cornyn. Cornyn votes with Trump in excess of 96% of the time. What's the old Ronald Reagan saying? If I get 80% of the votes, I'm a happy camper. So no, I am not in this Ken Paxton camp at all. I am in John Cornyn's camp, and I'm a firm believer that the Republican Party, President Trump, and the American people are going to be greatly served by John Cornyn returning to the Senate. Why do I say that? Because the probability of a loss with Ken Paxton is significantly higher. Talarico could beat him. Look, there hasn't been a Democratic senator in a long time. You got to go back into the 70s, Lloyd Benson. Most of this audience doesn't know Lloyd Benson. He was the last Democratic senator from Texas. You know, we've seen the recent races. Beto O'Rourke, defeated. Various other Democrats, defeated. They're going to throw a boatload of money at this race. Do not kid you. The Democratic Party is highly motivated. Last time John Cornyn won, he won the state by 10 points. Ted Cruz won it by 5. I think this race may turn out to be a 2, 3, 4-pointer. That assumes that John Cornyn wins the primary and is our nominee. I hope Trump comes out and supports him. He did not pick a horse, if you will, in the primary. There have been some media reports that Trump may support our incumbent, John Cornyn. I hope he does, because I cannot find a good justification for Ken Paxton to even run. So, personal opinion, John Cornyn is our best candidate. It is not even close. And optimistically, I hope John Cornyn wins. Now, Dan Crenshaw, another conservative, Crenshaw got beat last night. He's a very well-known Republican, wears the eye patch from injury and war. You know, he was defeated by businessman Steve Toth. Toth received a lot of support from the far conservative base of the party. For some reason, Crenshaw was branded not as conservative, although, again, he votes with Trump over 96% of the time. I mean, to say the guy wasn't conservative enough, I don't know. But when they redrew some districts in Texas, apparently that district became a little more conservative. Anyhow, Dan Crenshaw defeated. So I'm disappointed about that because I happen to like Crenshaw. But I have nothing against Steve Toth, and Steve Toth's going to win. So unlike that victory versus the one with Paxton and John Cornyn, I don't perceive any risk whatsoever. Steve's going to win the general election coming up. So how would you characterize it overall last night? Well, one group that came out to vote big time were the Hispanic voters along that southern border. John Cornyn's going to have to get a healthy percentage of those, to defeat Talarico in the general election. And I think he will. But so much is going to depend. What's the key issue? Again, it's no surprise, folks. Economic issues are weighing heavily. And now when you tie in what's happening, with the war, gas prices did tick up about 18 cents. That's not a big number, folks. I mean, when you consider, where oil prices spiked to and gas up 18 cents, that's not a big deal. The president said things will calm down over the coming weeks. He's right about that. But for all this doom and gloom, and people thought, this is the end, oil prices are going to spike, we're not going to get oil. No, there's continuing supply. The U.S. is a net exporter of oil. We're not an importer. We're a net exporter. That strait will get opened up. And I'm guessing within a week, 10 days, oil will be flowing back normal through the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it may temporarily push inflation up a little bit. Some people are betting it may take a little bit longer to get a rate cut, and that's possible. But bear in mind, economic issues are the leading issue among most voters. Hispanics, no change. Now, immigration enforcement, that's an issue, but it's not the top issue. So economically, we got really good news. Private sector, 63,000 jobs were created. That's really good. And we've got unemployment rate right now, 4.3%. I think when the next report comes out, it may tick, a tenth of a point lower. But we're having jobs created. Inflation still running about 2.5%, 0.5% above normal, where it should be. The stock market, folks, big rally today after being down yesterday. It's only down 1.5% from the all-time highs. Think about this. The United States with the Israelis engaged in war in the Middle East. You've heard all these left-wing pundits and media types. Oh, my God, the sky's falling. The market's going to crash. No, it's not. No. Now, there's concerns. There's always risks, sure. But think about it, folks. This year, we're in the first part of March. The S&P 500 is basically flat for the year. All your major markets, S&P 500, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, they're plus or minus a percentage point, 1% for the whole year. So no, we're not seeing dramatic change. We're seeing rotation out of some technology stocks into basic industry stocks, into stocks that are what I call AI proof. But overall, on a macro level, what are the issues that are going to determine how people vote this coming October, November? Jobs, looking good right now. Inflation, ticked up a little. I think there's time to bring it back down. Economic growth, I think we're going to grow 3 to 4% this year. And if we can just get those inflation numbers down to where wage growth exceeds inflation, I think it can be good for us. But those are the key determinants. That's really what's going to take us where we need to go here. So overall, pretty good news. Now, Treasury Secretary came out and he said the tariffs, which are currently at 10%, are going to go to 15% towards the end of this week. That's not the greatest thing in the world. I would have rather had them keep them at 10%. Do I think it's going to be a detriment? No. Marginally around the edges, maybe. but it's not such a staggering number that I think it's going to halt economic growth. So let's sort of summarize where we are. Continuing good news on the war front, call it what it is. It is a war. You know, the Qataris, they captured 10 Iranians. There were 2 sleeper cells. We have to be on the lookout for that, folks. Look what happened in our own country. One Iranian sympathizer killed 2 college students, wounded many others. The FBI is on the lookout for sleeper cells in this country. It could happen, folks. And while this is going on, Trump also made a comment about, the Russia-Ukraine situation. The Russians were losing literally 1,000 soldiers a day. And the Ukrainians have made some progress, taking back some land previously lost. So effectively, that war is at a stalemate. There have been some reports that there is communication going on which could lead to ceasefire. I haven't seen any evidence of it yet, but there's always hope. And as far as our situation goes, working with the Israelis, it is, when Trump said initially that it's going to take about 4 weeks, take him at his word, folks. I think this continues to get better each day that goes along. Each day that goes along, the Iranians, they're going to have less and less missiles. Again, as I said it at the first part of the show, my big concern are these drones. And you've seen pictures of them. These are very potent weapons. But think about this. Knowing what you've seen with the Iranian missiles, can you imagine what would happen had they advanced their nuclear capabilities to put a nuclear warhead on one of these missiles? You could have seen deaths in the millions in the Middle East, particularly in Israel. So again, personal basis, pure patriotism, we support the president, we support General Kane, Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth. We think they're doing an outstanding job. Sure, you're going to have a certain percentage of the public that's against war. I get it. But when I look at the way the scales here, advantage or disadvantage, right track, wrong track, to me, it was clearly the right decision. And I'm proud the president made that decision to actually move up the time frame a little bit. I think there will be a lot more that we'll have to talk about this in the coming weeks. But for right now, you have to sit back and say, okay, on the right track. Now, got about a minute left. The U.S. obviously wants to find internal within Iraq somebody or some group that can lead this country to what we deem to be normal prosperity, getting away from these religious fanatics that have been in power for 47 years. We hope they're successful. There was some report that the president reached out to the Kurds. Maybe yes, we'll see. But one thing that we cannot tolerate is to have the representations of the existing power structure in place. Trump even went out of his way to say, well, we had a couple people in mind, but they got killed. And then we had a few more in mind that may have been killed in the other attack on that other building. So it's a wide open question, who's going to run the country? I can assure you, if it's the son of the Ayatollah, now, again, as I said, I would not want to write an insurance policy on that man's life. So it really is an open question, who takes over. But in the meantime, the country continues to be degraded. It is on the verge of collapse. But don't discount that Revolutionary Guard. They're the ones that have the weapons. And when you have the weapons, he who has the weapons generally makes the laws. And there's a lot of them. So we're going to have to see how this plays itself out. But for right now, I think, if I have to grade the performance of our military and our political leadership, I'm going to give them both A's. A++ to our military and a solid A to Rubio, Hegseth, Raising Cane, President Trump, and the administration. Okay, that's it for today, folks. We'll be back later in the week giving you updates. Stick with Schaftlein Report, Patriot TV. We'll guide you through this. Thanks for viewing. See you later.
Sadie, why don't more people know about the health benefits of Glucodown soluble fiber? That it lowers blood sugar, especially after meals?
Glucodown drink mixes are enriched with soluble fiber for healthy blood sugar. It's diabetic-friendly nutrition, and it's clinically proven.
Glucodown's clinically proven soluble fiber helps maintain blood sugar in a healthy range, especially after meals.
Glucodown is a game changer.
Keep your blood sugar healthy. Try all 8 flavors of Glucodown.
Available at Amazon or in the diabetic care aisle at your local pharmacy.